Hey everybody, happy today. I think I'm gonna call this episode Christmas version of Not a Mom Fail. We're so quick to accuse ourselves of screwing things up because many of us have these beautiful, perfect, wonderful visions. And there's so much that we're doing, it's kind of impossible to do it all right. So of course some things aren't going to go as expected. Of course you're going to run out of time when you're trying to fit 5 days worth of stuff into 2 days. I'm notorious for having done this and I've learned a lot from it. And I want to share some of the most valuable lessons with you because these things, we tend to think of them as the ghosts of our Christmas past, our mess ups. But these are actually more our reminders, our trophies of Christmas victories, of things that went so well, that were not as expected, that maybe were not on the plan, or maybe they were on the plan and we had to change it and we had to adapt, we had to be resilient and we had to try again. They are now our Christmas trophies, our Christmas ta-das. And I really, really, really want you to get that everything you're doing to make Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever season you are celebrating and making magical for your kid and for your family, you are doing so well, especially if you're not trying to do all of it at once. Felicia and I were talking on our podcast recently about how there's a gazillion different winter holidays, major, minor, and everything in between. And you couldn't possibly do all of them. Some of them, like the timelines would overlap or the traditions and the principles themselves would conflict and contradict. Like you couldn't possibly do all of them. So why for something like Christmas that has so many different ways of celebrating will we think I can do it all? You're one person. You're not supposed to do it all. Your family probably doesn't even want to do it all. They're probably tired after a certain point. And so these are some ways where there are examples of how my family wasn't able to do it all. One of them was during a time when I was a kid, my parents took what felt like a true disaster and it's actually a cherished memory. And one of these is where I thought like, I screwed that up. I missed the boat. I can't do that anymore. And I realized, no, the boat's still totally there. So I want to show you these 2 examples. The first one, we'll go chronological order. When I was 8, my family moved. We were moving to this beautiful house in the country in this wonderful place. I loved where I grew up. And my mom was heartbroken. And I was pretty disappointed too during the move because it went later than expected. We were supposed to be in our house before Christmas. We moved in December 27th. Now my parents made it a wonderful Christmas. It was great. It was disappointing because it was not in the new house we were expecting to be in, and all of the Christmas stuff was in storage. We were in a condo with none of our heirloomy, nostalgic stuff. So they came up with some solutions, and one of them is actually something that has been packed away and saved for years and years because they're a new Christmas treasure. Okay, they're not a disaster. They're a treasure. So I light up so much every year when I pull these out. Oh my gosh, I'm like, when do I cry happy, nostalgic tears thinking about these? So we're a very crafty family. So we made ornaments. So my parents got some cardboard and paint and decoupage and glitter, and they took wrapping paper, made like these little like cardboard angel ornaments, just like with some wire. And I've always really been into marine animals, so I think they got some special ocean wrapping paper so they can make some ocean ornaments for me. This one looks like it needs a new hook, but we just found ways to make it special. And now every year I pull these out and my son loves looking at these. Look, this one's fun. This is just a piece of felt cut out. I think I might have made this one, or my dad did, and it's just gotten beat up over the years. It's like 30 years old now. It is 30 years. This was when I was 8 and I'm 38. Wow, this is 30 years old. So it's just a piece of felt and some little ribbony things hot glued on and a pipe cleaner. I love this ornament. This is one of my favorite ornaments on my tree still. I love it. So that disaster gave us treasures. So when you're having to do things different than planned, that were unexpected, and if you're worried like, oh my gosh, everything's ruined for my family, or I didn't deliver what I wanted. I just really wanted this magical thing to happen. This is so important for me because of this reason or that reason, or because Christmas was so special for me, or because my Christmases were so terrible growing up. Whatever those stories we have and hold on to that are very real, Sorry, I had a timer going off. Whatever those stories are, don't let them trick you into thinking that they're the only truth. Again, these are now my treasures. Let me show you one other treasure. This is one from when I had a baby and was incredibly tired. It was my second Christmas with a baby. He was 1.5. So not as much got done as I wanted to because, baby demands. So I'd been wanting to do this really special bit of footprint art. Granted, I'm not that into footprint art, but I was really just like, oh, I really want to capture how little they are. And I saw this cute little Mistletoes project where you step their feet into green paint and you have them hanging, and there's a little ribbon. Boom, mistletoes. Super cute. But here I was, it was January 15th or something. Christmas was still all over the house because I did not have energy to put away. But I remember thinking man, I really wanted to do that. I thought of doing it in November or something probably. And man, I really dropped the ball. I really wish I had made that happen. I wanted to do that. And I started going into that cycle. And luckily in a few minutes, I realized some very, very basic concept of, wait a minute, he still has feet. Our voice, our inner critic gets so worked up. We forget basic things like my kid still has feet that I can paint and make footprint art with. So even though it's January, I didn't do it in December, I'm still allowed to do it. It was this huge epiphany for me, maybe because I was really tired because, 1-year-old, but it was such a big relief of I can still do it. It just really cracked me up how liberating that thought was. Because again, his feet were still there. Some of you may not have ever had this limiting thing, but I think so often we get so worked up and I've got to do this thing and I've got to do it by this deadline, by this timeline. We have as adults these external deadlines and pressures and times versus a child really has no idea when Christmas is. For the first few years of Christmas, we celebrated Christmas several days earlier, several days later than was actually it, because my kid wasn't tracking it, and we had to shape it around when family was coming. It's they don't care. This is why kids might even love doing stuff like Christmas in July. It's just the fun, it's the specialness. They don't have nearly as many constraints and limitations as we do, versus some of us are very rigidly thinking I must do this before December 25th or else it doesn't count, Anyways, so that January 15th or whatever day it was, I got out the green paint. I had a canvas lying around, but if I hadn't, I probably would have just gone to the store next time I did a grocery run. Maybe I could have done it in February, who knows? And we did it. We did his 1-year-old baby feet into mistletoes. And now I have them. And I remember packing this thinking future Jenny is going to be so proud of past Jenny because she did this. And future Jenny's not going to care one bit or another that this was made in January instead of December. That's not it. The nostalgia, the memory, the what I captured, that's what's important. And let's say I hadn't done this the first couple of years, I could have still done it when he was 3. Heck, I could still do this with his big 6-year-old feet, or I could have him do this as an adult and find some funny, creative way to do it. The point isn't it being this you have to have exactly this thing. The point is, are you making it special? Are you making it worthwhile and wonderful? I mentioned the adult feet because on that podcast episode about decluttering our holiday expectations, Felicia and I joked about how you can still do special stuff when kids aren't in the tiny little cute baby phase, or when they're not little. You can still let things be special and cute, and how we as adults are, for those of us who our parents are alive, they still would cherish things that we would make for them. I'm always going to love and cherish my son as my little one, no matter how big he is, when he's probably going to be taller than me. So the timeline is really up to you. You don't have to follow other people's rules. You're the rule maker. You get to make up those rules. You can do something after the fact. If you're wanting to celebrate wintry things like drinking hot cocoa, or maybe you want to keep watching Christmas movies because they make you feel good into January, February, do it. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. You get to make those rules up. If you want to do a family portrait as something special, but you don't want it to be a wintertime Christmas portrait, you want it to be a summertime portrait, or out in a bit of nature that reflects something special about your family that's different than a studio, you get to decide. You get to make up those rules, and those become your treasures, okay? So that's what I want to put out here today. It's not about doing it right, doing it in time, doing it a certain way, doing enough of it. It's about letting what you do be special. And that's something that your kids can carry with them. That's something you get to carry with them, because that's what you decide is important. That the things that you decide are important, that's what makes the holiday magic, more than somebody else's list on Pinterest or whatnot, okay? So don't think of your mess ups. They're probably not mess ups. They're just things didn't turn out how you expected or wanted them to. Don't let them turn into mom fails, okay? You do not need that burden. Do not let them be that. Do not let them be the ghosts that haunt you. Let them be the treasures that come back to you every single year as you say, I did that. I did that. Ta-da! I'm going to go work on my holiday ta-da list today. So I keep tracking every single good, wonderful thing I do to make the holidays special, because I'm a firm believer in, if you don't stop and acknowledge how much you're doing, how good what you're doing is, that you don't register it and pay attention to it enough in this real world. So I'm going to make sure that list is really long, and I'm including every single thing I'm doing because it's important. Before I get off, the last little thing I want to show you is another little bit of normalizing how we're perfectly imperfect. Does anyone else have a box like this in their attic? Almost every year I have a box of like, oh, these are the things that we found in March and we're lying around, or oh, we picked these up and like, I didn't want to put them into things in the attic. So like they loosely got thrown into a box and not even sealed into our attic. If it'd been some other moisture, temperature things, I probably would have done that. But I'm just saying, life isn't perfect, so don't try to be perfect, okay? If this inspired you today, please do me and your friends a favor. Please forward this to somebody who could use that little bit of empowerment, somebody you know who's working really hard, somebody who maybe doesn't see how wonderful they are, or somebody that you've seen be so resilient in a Christmas disaster like the ones my parents had, something like that. It might really make their day. And that's how you can help us with our mission. Felicia and I just want to empower as many parents on this planet as possible. And we need your help to do that, because the more parents we empower, the more children we empower. Because when you're empowered and you're feeling good about yourself and you're doing things in life that make your life meaningful, guess what? You are by default teaching that lifestyle to your kids. What better gift can you give them than that kind of self-love and compassion and happiness? All right. So take care, everybody. Happy holidays.